Some stories don't begin with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes, they begin with something as simple as a knock on the door, on a night when the world feels unbearably heavy. That's what happened to Claire Thompson, a 42-year-old writer in Asheville, North Carolina. She thought she had grown used to her quiet life, days stitched together by words, tea, and the steady presence of her cat, Oliver. But one stormy evening, when the rain came down in sheets and loneliness pressed heavier than ever, a single delivery changed the course of her life in ways she never could have imagined. Claire had been divorced for 3 years. It was amicable enough, no screaming matches, no bitter custody battles. Just two people who slowly drifted apart until silence felt louder than conversation. Her cottage had become both a sanctuary and a cage. She worked from home, editing manuscripts, her days blending together in muted colors. Nights were lonelier still. Sometimes she told herself she liked it this way, that solitude was easier than disappointment. But deep down, she knew she was simply existing, not living. That October night, the storm rattled the windows, and hunger tugged at her. Scrolling through her phone, she ordered lasagna from a local Italian spot, Bella Luna. It was comfort food for a comfortless night. Wrapped in a handmade throw blanket, she let the sound of rain fill the silence until the doorbell rang. When Claire opened the door, she expected just another transaction, a quick exchange of food and cash. Instead, she was met with a boyish face, framed by rain-soaked hair, his jacket plastered to his lean frame. He couldn't have been more than 18. In his hands, he carried the steaming foil container like it was something precious. "Delivery for Claire?" he asked, brushing wet strands from his forehead. "That's me," she said, startled by the warmth in his smile despite how drenched he was. "You must be frozen," she added before she could stop herself. He gave a light laugh, his voice carrying an ease that cut through the gloom. "Comes with the territory. You learn to live with it." She pressed cash into his hand, but he shook his head with a polite smile. "It's all right, Stay warm and enjoy your meal." And just like that, he disappeared into the storm, pedaling away on his bike. Claire stood there for a long moment, staring after him. Something about that brief encounter lingered. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. It was more like an echo, a reminder that human warmth still existed in the world. The next week, when another craving for lasagna struck, Claire wondered if, maybe, he would be the one to deliver again. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, there he was on her porch, shaking off his damp jacket. "Back for more?" he asked, grinning playfully. "Maybe I'm developing a Bella Luna addiction," she teased, surprising herself at how easily the words came. Their laughter carried lightly between them, and this time, she offered him a mug of hot tea. He hesitated but accepted, stepping just inside the doorway. As they sipped, he introduced himself as Finn O'Connor. He was just 18, juggling deliveries to save money for art school. He lived with his grandmother, who he spoke of with such tenderness it softened Claire's chest. In the weeks that followed, Claire's food orders became less about dinner and more about connection. Finn often ended up staying a little longer, perching on her porch steps with a cup of tea, sharing small stories from his long shifts. Sometimes it was just light chatter about the weather or school. Other times, their conversations dipped into deeper waters. He told her about his love for charcoal sketches, about nights spent sketching the mountains that framed their town. She told him about her own lost dreams of being a novelist, dreams she had abandoned when life became too heavy. One frigid night, Finn arrived looking exhausted, his breath misting in the cold air. "Bike chain broke," he admitted when she asked. "Been walking most of the route tonight." Claire frowned and ushered him inside. "You're not walking another step in this weather. Sit by the fire." He hesitated, a flicker of shyness in his eyes, but finally sank into her old armchair. The firelight painted his face in shades of warmth, and for the first time in years, Claire felt her home come alive with more than just the glow of her computer screen. That night they talked for hours. He shared his sketches, showing her photos on his phone. She found herself leaning closer, drawn not just to the images, but to the quiet passion in his voice. She confessed things she hadn't told anyone in years, the loneliness, the divorce, the way her words had once been alive but now felt forced. Finn listened without judgment, his eyes steady on hers. Something unspoken lingered between them after that. Not quite romance, but not entirely innocent either. A tension, soft, delicate, dangerous in the way it stirred something long dormant in Claire. She reminded herself of their ages, of propriety, of the lines that mustn't be crossed. But she also knew she hadn't felt this alive in a very long time. Their bond grew in quiet ways. He fixed things around her cottage, carried heavy boxes, returned borrowed books. Sometimes he brought her wildflowers, sometimes just stories from his day. They laughed more than she thought possible. She began to write again, not for clients, not for deadlines, but for herself. And every word felt brighter, fuller, touched by his presence. One summer evening, sitting on the porch as fireflies blinked against the twilight, Finn turned to her with a sincerity that made her chest ache. "You know, Claire, this place, it feels like a sanctuary to me. I don't have to pretend here. I can just be myself." Her throat tightened, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "You've given me more than you know, too, Finn." In that silence, filled only by crickets and the fading hum of the day, something unnameable passed between them. It wasn't conventional, it wasn't what people would easily understand, but it was real. Eventually, Finn's dream came true. He was awarded a scholarship to the art college he'd been saving for. Claire felt a swell of pride so deep it startled her, as if he were her own. They celebrated with pizza and blueberry pie, laughter echoing through the cottage late into the night. Though his visits became less frequent, Finn kept his promise. He still came by, sketchbook in hand, stories to share. And Claire, looking back, realized what he had truly delivered that rainy October night. It wasn't just lasagna. It was hope. It was light. In the end, he hadn't just filled her stomach. He had filled her world again, with color, with laughter, with life.